Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. Join us each week or when you can. We enjoy exploring wellness concepts and reminding you to make time for wellness.
This is episode 120.
Welcome to a new week on the Let's Be Well Together podcast. It's Elise Seifert, and today I'm joined with John Webster.
Hi, Elise.
So, John, I was wondering what's on your mind today?
I sent you a social media post, and it's called Share a Compliment. And it kind of hit me because I recently read the book. It's an old book, and it's actually pretty dated. So when you read it, you have to kind of read it with a grain of salt in some respects. But it's How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And it definitely reminded me about the power of being positive with people, the power of how you can make someone's day in a way, in a pretty easy way. And so this is a social media post from the Canadian Mental Health Association, and it says, share a compliment, and it gives you some examples. I'll read the first few if you could read the last three. You are beautiful inside and out. You have a heart of gold. You inspire me.
You are a shining light. You are making an impact. You are brave.
What I like about this is it reminds me that there's things we can do that are easy, that are free, and that can really make a difference, can create goodwill. Then again, though, it's got to be authentic. It's got to be real. You can't just go around. Because I do know people that every time you see them, like, oh, thank you for this thing you did, and that's amazing, and they keep repeating the same things and whatnot. And I hate to say it, even though they're trying to be nice, it sounds a bit disingenuous. So I think this only works if it's an actual authentic compliment and you're saying it and you sound real when you say it. Have you ever had that experience where you said something to somebody, maybe even just because you felt like saying it, and then you saw that it really lit up their day?
I think I experienced this a lot when I was learning how to make new friendships in high school. So I know when I went to high school, I went to a school that was totally separate from my elementary school. So it was kind of like starting fresh with all of my friendships. And there were a lot of different clubs that you could be a part of. And I always found when I was joining a new club with new people, the best way to start off a conversation was with a compliment. And it always kind of helped the conversation to flow and maybe gave it a good starting point. And it just made other people feel good, which in turn makes you feel good.
Yeah, I can imagine that you're in a club and maybe somebody made something, whether it's sewing or art, and you say, hey, that looks really amazing. How'd you do that? What a great way to start a conversation and also makes them feel good.
Definitely. And then it kind of helps you to feel more gratitude in general, because you're looking for things that make you happy or that make other people feel good. And then maybe you might see that in yourself and make you feel grateful for having those qualities.
It's a good point. Even just that exercise, if you're like, you know what, I'm going to give some compliments out today. So then you're walking around and you're looking for the good in people, right? So
yeah,
because,
totally changes your outlook.
Yeah, your outlook changes so much depending on what you're trying to do. Like if you're looking for faults in people, it'll be one thing. If you're looking for opportunities to compliment people, it's another.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, because that's a book that I know Stephen has read, and he references it a lot. It really changed the way that he looked at friendships.
What I like about it a lot is, so when I read it, and I only read it recently, I've heard about it for a long time, I thought for some reason there'd be kind of magic secret tips, and maybe at the time they were. But what I did like about it is I don't think much of it struck me as an unknown. A lot of it's common sense stuff and great ideas and really well thought out advice, but it's all in one place.
Right.
Which is terrific. And mostly what I really liked about it is it's really about being positive. And so, for example, and another side to it, which we don't have time to get into, is one of their rules is never argue, ever.
Oh.
Never argue, because you can't win. Because both people are just polarized at that point. You're not getting anywhere in terms of getting to any kind of positive outcome together. Anyway, there's a lot of really good stuff in it. I actually saw something that this reminded me of too on a reel, on an Instagram reel. And I'm going to guess that the kid who said it was probably in high school, but he said, hey, my dad told me this thing and I tried it. It's a 10-5 rule and it works pretty good. And the rule is if you're within 10 feet of somebody, smile and make eye contact. And if you're within 5 feet, greet, say something, say hi, do something. And so I saw that and I'm like, Sounds like a pretty easy rule, a good rule. And I started doing it at work, right? So if I'm within 10 feet of someone, I smile and nod, make eye contact. And I always say hi if I'm closer. And what a difference it makes.
I'm sure people feel seen and acknowledged. So it makes them feel really nice.
I think that was another point that Carnegie made in his book too, that, you know, you can light up a room, you can brighten up a room by people interacting that way. And especially if somebody, for whatever reason, is expecting to be ignored or expecting some pushback, when you open up like that, it just changes everything.
It reminds me, that 10-5 rule reminds me of hiking. I don't know if you've ever gone hiking and you pass people and you always just say hello. I think because everyone's in a good mood, you're outside, you're having fun, and you just say hello to everyone you pass, no matter who they are. And I always think that's really nice.
Maybe you do, but like that's funny because when Mom and I are biking or walking or stuff, like it's taken me a long time to get to that point. So now when I'm out running, I do wave and nod to every runner that goes by.
Acknowledge the hard work.
I don't always do it to everybody, but every runner at least, sometimes bikers. But with me and Mom, like we'd be biking and she'd say hi, she'd smile, she'd say, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, because my problem is it's about outlook, right? I was seeing everybody as a threat. Like if we say that person might think this, or don't talk to them because then that gives them an opportunity to do X. And generally that was kind of a crummy way to go down a path. And it is a lot better now when Sheila finally got through to me and I'm like, hi, how are you? Wave and nod. And it just makes it so much better.
It does. I think it just puts everyone in a positive mind. I think Stephen and I are similar, where Stephen will be more critical of people's actions and I'll be more positive about them. And it comes up a lot in game shows. I don't know if you ever watch the competition shows, like let's say The Amazing Race or The Ultimate Canadian Competition or Big Brother, something like that, where I think everyone's motives are very pure, but they're all playing games. And Stephen's usually right. Their motives aren't as pure.
Well, there's different ways to look at it. Like there's one thing to be critical of people. I fall into that at times too. Like, what an idiot. Why would they do that? Instead of, oh shoot, I can see how they would do that and how can they fix it? So that's kind of being critical about. But in terms of people's motives, yes, I'm quite jaded. People are generally trying to get stuff for themselves.
And I think it's good to see that side, to be aware of it and to be prepared for it. So it's good to have a balance of both.
Yeah, sometimes I wish I could drop some of it because as a litigation lawyer, I always see kind of the worst possible outcome in everything I look at. Like, here's how this could develop in a bad way. And sometimes I have to just fight to myself and be like, don't go down that road. Just nothing's happening. You're just having a normal day. You just met somebody. They're not out to get you. But what about, this must work. You're a kindergarten teacher. You must have an impact on kids when you give a kid a compliment.
Oh, definitely. I know it's so powerful to start your day by just greeting each student, saying hello, maybe complimenting them on something new that they're wearing or a hairstyle that they have or a haircut. And it just helps to build your relationship with the students and helps to make them feel more comfortable with you. And I'm a big positive reinforcer in my classroom. So really positively praising anything good that the students are doing. Like, oh, I love how you helped so-and-so to pick up the blocks and put them away. That was great teamwork. And I find that goes a lot farther than reprimanding the students, which sometimes you have to do. But I find that positive praise then kind of fuels the rest of the class to want to do the same thing.
Another lesson that came from the book that goes along with share a compliment, and I think maybe they overstated in the book, but basically in the book, they say that everybody's favorite word is their name. That people love to hear their name. Now, I agree with that. Like, let's just not worry about whether it's their favorite thing. But people love to hear their name. They love to know that you know their name. And I've been trying to get better too, because I work in a place where there's a lot of new people coming in. There's people being hired. We're growing. People leave. And it is hard at times to keep track of names. So I'm trying to do a better job of it. And I also find, like, if you're going to share a compliment, why not use a name too? Even if you're not sharing a compliment, when you say hi and use people's names. It just got this massive impact when you use someone's name when you're doing these kind of things.
I know I always felt really special when I was serving if I would introduce myself with my name, and then later, maybe at the end of the meal, they would say, thank you, Elise. And it just makes you feel like, oh, they remembered me. That makes me feel special. And it was really meaningful.
Yeah. So if that happens even in your context, which was serving someone, imagine how good it feels if it's in a context where you're with people more often, or they're people you see more often. So yeah, great. So it's kind of a nice little social media post, and it's something easy we can do. And it's like I said at the start, it's free. Okay. So you can create goodwill, a good feeling. It costs you nothing except for just paying attention to the people around you and appreciating what people bring.
Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds.
Today's interview is in the category of physical, but also overall wellness. We're chatting with Rachel Runge about a shift of focus. From comparing her achievements to other people's achievements, shifting that perspective to making small improvements in herself over time. Rachel mentioned this in a LinkedIn post that I connected with. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, John.
Rachel Runge is a self-described newfound fitness enthusiast. Her interest in fitness began in October 2022 when a mentor and friend suggested she give group fitness a chance at Orangetheory. In addition to the physical benefits of regular physical activity, Rachel has identified new ways of managing a demanding profession as she sets goals to push her fitness to new levels. Rachel's a lawyer and my colleague from another office. We work together. She started her career in 2012. Since 2019, she's been a lawyer at my firm, Gowling WLG, now with a focus on the regulation of insurance in Canada. She's on the board of directors for the Hamilton Lawyers Club and for Wilfrid Laurier Alumni Association. Mentorship has been important to Rachel in finding personal satisfaction in her career. Rachel has been a formal mentor to articling students and an informal mentor to law students and junior lawyers. Outside the office, she volunteers her times with local high school students and law students in the Laurier-Sussex Joint Degree Program. So Rachel, you told me that since your first Orangetheory class, you've barely missed a day and now make it a practice to locate the nearest Orangetheory studio when traveling. How did it come about that a mentor suggested that you try it in the fall of 2022?
My dive into fitness actually started in June of 2019. Around that time, my waistcoat that we wear as litigators in court, I had purchased it quite sizely when I was a student 7 years earlier. It no longer did up.
Oh, no.
I was forced to purchase a new waistcoat. So in 2019, I decided I needed to do something, but being kind of an introvert and new to the fitness world at that point, I chose personal training. And I did personal training on and off. Even through the pandemic, I would do it virtually with my trainer. But in October of 2022, my mentor came to me and she said, why don't you come to Orangetheory with me? And I've since found out, because I asked her the same question, why did you ask me to join your thing? And she said to me, you looked miserable.
Right.
So she asked me to join. She didn't say anything about my weight at the time. Personal training had not worked for me. But it was because I looked miserable and that I needed something new in my life.
Well, I'm not surprised because during COVID, so many of us, it was just so hard to be alone. I'm lucky I'm in a relationship. I'm with people. There's people in the house. But for lots of us, we all looked miserable for a time.
That was just it. I had lived through the pandemic by myself in a 1-bedroom condo. So it was challenging. I was going into the office for socialization at that point.
Right. So tell me a little bit about the class. What do you do in the Orangetheory class?
Orangetheory is a group fitness class. Class sizes can range anywhere from 12 people up to 36. Different templates. And by template, I mean the structure of the class. And the cool thing about Orangetheory is there are studios worldwide, and we're doing the same template as Sydney, Australia is doing on the same day. Most popular template is what's called 2G, and there's 24 people split into two groups. Half the class is running on the treadmill for half an hour, and half the class is in the weight room doing weights for half an hour. In both cases, you're led by a coach. So on the treadmill, you're not just told to, start and go. You're doing different speeds and inclines. High energy. The smaller classes are, of the 12 group classes, are focused entirely either on strength. So it's 50 minutes in the weight room with the coach, or it's 50 minutes on the treadmill, pure running. So lots of different options, but all group and all coach led.
When that first one where there's 24 people, do you like split the class so you're running half the time and then weights, or do you just only do one or the other?
It's splitting the class. So it's called 2G because for two groups. My preference is always to start on the treadmill. I do 30 minutes on the treadmill and then there's a switch and then my group goes to the floor.
How do you find the group dynamic in terms of energizing, or do you feel maybe a bit of competition? Does it keep you going? How does that work?
It depends on who's there on any given day. We have generally at 6:30 in the morning. That group is pretty consistent. There is a friendly competition amongst us. This morning, there was a wild energy. Everybody seemed chatty. The bigger the class, the more energy there is. I do go to different times when I don't know as many people, but you feel a sense of belonging because you're all in it together. And it's the same thing when I visit studios in Montreal, Ottawa, anywhere else. I don't know a soul. And in Montreal, I didn't even speak French. I felt the energy and I felt the connection with the rest of the class.
You mentioned in your LinkedIn post that you have a tendency to compare yourself to others, whether that was back in school days or as a lawyer. Tell us a little bit about that.
When I look back and reflect on where that came from, I think it's natural given that law is a competitive field. And it starts with a competitive process to get into law school. You've got to have great grades. You've got to do well on the LSAT. You're judged largely on paper with the admissions committee. We don't have the opportunity for interviews. So I think it's natural that we become competitive early on. Throughout law school, we're reminded that it's going to be hard to find articling positions. We're constantly coached on what we need to do to bolster our resumes and our interview skills. And it doesn't end there. Once we're hired back as an associate, we are heavily measured, like any business really, on metrics. We hear about the billable hour, we hear about fees. Some places will measure how many files you're carrying, others will measure how quickly you can close a file. And it's so easy to find self-worth in those, or want to find self-worth in those metrics. So for me, I found I'd be looking over my shoulder at my peers going, am I keeping up? Am I ahead of the pack? Am I behind the pack? And I spent a lot of focus on comparing myself to others.
I'm assuming that didn't feel very good. So then somebody suggested that you should stop comparing yourself to others and try and make small improvements in yourself week over week, year over year. What did you think when you heard that?
So coincidentally, that advice came from one of our colleagues, a few years senior to me. And it came in the context of I was comparing myself to my former self as a litigator. And as a litigator, I had a high-paced practice. I worked from 6 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. I would do trials. I'd be in mediation. I'd be at discovery. And I was go, 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 go. And when I was a little more senior and I made the decision to transition and focus more on the regulatory space, there was a natural slowing down as I learned a new practice area. I wasn't traveling as much. So what she said to me is stop comparing yourself to what you used to be and don't compare yourself to others. And at the time I thought, I just don't get it.
Right.
It didn't land with me. So yeah, to answer your question, what did I think of it? I thought that sounds nice, but how do you do it?
Right. So it didn't resonate with you at the time. So then you start Orangetheory. And tell me a little bit about your early classes. What did you think when you were in the class and you saw the other people? Were you comparing, that kind of thing?
I went into Orangetheory, and notwithstanding I had done 3 years of personal training, my fitness level was so below that of others in the class. I was still heavily overweight, out of shape. I was struggling with asthma that was out of control. So I felt going into that class, I can't compare myself to these folks. I'm in a different league well below them. So I didn't really find myself comparing them. It was more of a, is this going to work for me type thing.
Was it intimidating when you see the other people in such better shape?
It was actually inspiring.
Okay.
And I say that because a lot of my gym colleagues we've got a wide range of people. Some of them are in their late 60s and they're going every day. And it was inspiring to see the changes that they had made in their lifestyle and commitment to their health. Intimidating? No. Again, I was so focused on keeping one foot in front of the other on the treadmill and not wiping out that I quickly realized that other people were so focused on what they were doing that they didn't have time or the bandwidth to notice me.
By coincidence, I just happened to have gotten back into some harder runs recently, including I started up with some hill training again. And I had this experience the other day where I just finished a repeat of 4x400 up a pretty good hill. And I was running along after that and I just thought, wow, I can do hard things and I feel fantastic. Did you ever get that sense after you'd been there for a while?
I get that sense all the time now. The first time that I got it was about 2 months in. We had a benchmark challenge for a 2,000 meter row. And at that point, I couldn't row like on a water rower. I couldn't row more than 500 meters without my right hip kind of giving out. And I went in that morning and I said, I'm not doing the 2,000 meter row. And a friend of mine said, oh, yes, you are. And at that point, my only goal was to finish it without, losing a hip. And I did. I finished it in 10 minutes. Everybody else was down in the 7-8 minute range. But I thought, man, I did that. Yeah. And so every day I'll have a bad day at work or I'll, be exhausted and I'll still go to the gym. And I have this sense of, I did that. I still committed to myself and I don't see myself changing now.
It's one of the things I love about getting back into physical fitness, which is you do those things and no matter the day, no matter what's happening, we are physical and it makes us feel better when we accomplish those things. And I think from your LinkedIn post, what I understand is at Orangetheory, there's a lot of kind of competitions kind of against yourself where they have these benchmarks and you try over time to slowly increase how you do or how well you do on each of these different things. So give us some examples.
Yeah, so there's the 2,000 meter row. Another one is a 200 meter row, which is a little more my speed. There's treadmill benchmarks. How fast can you run in 12 minutes? How fast can you run a mile? Those are some of my more challenging ones. I had never considered myself a runner. And the point is your distance or your time gets tracked and you look back and have you beat your time. And for me, one of the biggest wins was when I got my time below 8 minutes on that 2,000 meter row. So it's nice to look back and see your improvement.
So now let's go back to the time where somebody said, hey, stop comparing yourself to other people and just try and make small improvements in yourself week over week. And that's what struck me from your LinkedIn post. I think what you're saying was after your experience with Orangetheory, then it resonated with you.
It kind of hit me like a ton of bricks on a 1 mile run.
Okay.
Not enough to knock me off my feet. One of my closest friends at Orangetheory, she is a sprinter and she is fast. And she can do a 1 minute mile, or not a 1 minute mile, I'm sorry. She can do a mile in less than 8 minutes, somewhere between 7 and 8 minutes. And I just wanted to break 10 minutes. And I was halfway through that run and I thought, this is what it is. I am just as excited for myself to break 10 minutes because I could tell I was going to do it as I was for my friend to break 7 minutes. And I thought that's what she meant when she said, stop comparing yourself to others. Check in and see if you're doing better than what you were last time. So then it resonated.
That's amazing. So I'm older than you. And I think there's another progression eventually. I think it's a great time in your life to be doing those improvements and working to increase your time and keep getting better. But then eventually you get to a point where you don't even compare yourself to yourself. You're going out and you're trying to get the exercise in and you're trying to do this stuff. Why? Because it just feels amazing and you just want to keep it up. And that's even another hopeful chapter in different people's physical experience. But it definitely was mine because I've been slowing down lately. And yet I find that I love working out just as much. And I kind of have left behind that need to always be a bit faster.
Well, you kind of hit for me the point that, my most recent lesson came yesterday. I've had kind of a rough couple of months at the gym coming over an injury, and we had a 1 mile benchmark. And I wasn't going to do it. I was just going to power walk it. And when I say just, power walking is hard too. But the fellow next to me said to me, you got a personal best today? And I said to him, I just want to finish it. And I realized as I came to the end of it, I'm actually having a little bit of compassion for myself. I wasn't forcing myself to set another personal best. I set a realistic and more kind goal. So, we're hearing a lot about compassion during Mental Health Week. And I thought, this is compassion for myself. I'm not going to sit and cry about it if I don't beat my personal best.
There was a time where when I knew I wasn't going to have a good run, I kind of didn't want to go. But anytime I did go, and no matter how slow or fast I was, I felt amazing when I was done. So it was the after effects were always worth it for me.
I agree.
Well, thanks so much for sharing. I'm so glad I saw that LinkedIn post. As you know, we're a show about wellness, and we talk about different categories of wellness, and we ask every guest the same question in a context where we can't keep all those categories going at any given time. We do essentially a mini wellness check-in. Are you currently neglecting an area of wellness in your life, and can you think of even one thing that you could do to foster wellness in that area?
This comes back to the compassion that I was just talking about. And I still struggle with not keeping up with the formal Rachel. And it's easy to stop comparing myself to her. But I need to have more compassion for the changes that I've made to my practice and some of, the life changes that I've had. And it struck me yesterday in reflecting on your question and, falling 13 seconds below my personal best, that maybe if I had more compassion for myself in the workplace and the same compassion that I have for others, work would be a little bit easier.
I hear from so many of our guests, they don't say it expressly on a question or on a topic, but I hear from so many say things like, well, I have to take care of other people first, or I'm always nice to other people. And if I ask, how about to yourself, there's kind of that pause. So I love the idea that you're thinking about being compassionate to yourself, just like you would be for other people. And I wish you the best of luck with that.
Thanks, John.
Okay, well, thanks again.
My pleasure. I didn't have a class tonight, so what else was I doing?
Okay.
I'm Cameron, and welcome to another installment of the Adventures of the Starving Artist. I had an awesome teacher moment today. Super rad. First thing I woke up to this morning was a text from one of my students that I used to teach in person before I moved to Ottawa. And since I've moved, we've had a few online lessons and a couple in person when I happened to be down in her neck of the woods. But I woke up to a text this morning that was very excited that basically said, Cam, I've unlocked my vocal cords. And so I responded like, nice, congrats, awesome, tell me more. And so she went on and on about how she can finally sort of sing these notes and belt them out without any strain. And this is what we've been working on for our past few online lessons. And she was so excited about it. And she was just raving about how she sang for like 3 hours straight. And there was no strain and just, she's found it. She's got it, right? And as a teacher, there's nothing better than when your student not only masters something and nails it down, but is stoked about it like that. And so even though I had just woken up, like I'm not joking, I woke up to the phone going on my desk, And even though I was groggy and not yet a real person and couldn't form proper sentences, I was so excited. Oh, it was great. So she's really excited about it and stoked, and she wants to get a lesson in this weekend and just basically show me, which is fabulous, and then work on some next steps and just developing it further. And that's the best. When a student has been working on something that they've been like actively striving towards and putting the time in, and they've been hitting walls and jumping over hurdles, and they finally get there, there honestly is no better feeling as a teacher. So Danielle, A+ work, my dude. Nice job. I'll see you this weekend on Zoom. And I hope you all get a chance to crush something you've been working towards soon. Little steps at a time, and then one of these days it'll just happen. That's it for me. Short and sweet. Have a fantastic week. Hope you're enjoying the weather. I'm Cameron. This is The Starving Artist. Until next time.
We don't have any ads yet, and that's on purpose. We're sharing stories and experiences to give back, to inspire, and get people talking about wellness. 2 quick points. My personality is to present things in a progression. Once I cover a point, I often don't go back to it. If you want to see the whole picture about wellness I'm trying to paint, listen to all our episodes from the start. Second, it's costly to put out a podcast. You can help me defray that cost by buying my book, Accidentally Well by John Webster. It's available on Amazon, Indigo, or anywhere you buy books online. Please consider buying a copy.
Move that body like we're meant to do. We found this great article, 25 ways to move your body while you're stuck in the house. And I thought it was awesome because we do have a lot of things that we have to do when we're at home. And sometimes it takes a little while. Let's say you put a roast in, you do have to monitor it, but you've got an hour. So what can you do? And this has 25 ideas of what you can do at home. So I thought we'd list the first 5. What do you think, John?
Yeah, let's go through them over time. What I really like about it is I'm finding that it kind of goes along with something I'm learning. I don't have enough time to do everything.
I know.
And I haven't been doing it, but I'm an optimistic person. I keep thinking, tomorrow I'm going to do it.
That's true.
And so here's my issue in terms of timing. So what I'd like to do every week is aerobic. So I'll get my runs in, and there's different versions of that. And I like to do that 4 times a week. And then strength training, I like to do 3 times a week. And I can make time for that before work or after work.
Mm-hmm.
But ideally, I also want to be doing my core workouts, which I think is different than strength. Mm-hmm. And I want to stretch.
Right.
And it's really the stretching where I just can't find time for it. And then just generally, whenever you're around the house, it helps to move a bit. So if I can just find a way to think about moving my body while I'm doing other things or while I'm at home, then maybe I can get that done. And one example we'll get to eventually is maybe I can stretch while we're watching TV. Mm-hmm. But let me just go through the first 5 on the list today, and then we can talk about whatever one you want. So the first 5 are walk it out. And I think that means walking either inside the house or just go out for a quick walk.
Yep.
Get a dog, clean it all up.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of cleaning. Cook some moves and dance. And cook some moves, I think it was saying like while you're cooking, while you reach for something, hold a stretch, do little steps or whatever. But what one comes to your mind, Sheila?
Well, I really like to cook some moves because I do most of the cooking. And I find like if I'm moving while I'm cooking and while you're waiting, that's the thing.
So give me an example.
Waiting. Well, for example, I like to do like sometimes when I have to stir, like how you have to constantly stir and let it stir and stir until it hits a certain consistency. I like to do a figure 8 and do a figure 8 with my hips while I'm doing the figure 8. Yeah.
Oh, I should watch that.
So I'll do a figure 8 with my hips while I'm doing a figure 8, or I'll do a circle and I'll do a circle with my hips, that kind of thing. But the other thing I think cooking some moves is stretching, right? Like have your legs a little wider and do some lunges, or maybe do some squats while you're cooking. I think it's just trying to remember to do this. Like you kind of have to make it habitual. While I'm cooking, I'm going to do this. So I think that's something I can totally do and do more of.
That's a great point. I think that is a key point, which is just always think about moving. Like think about the fact that your body wants to move.
Yeah.
And you use it or you lose it. Mm-hmm. Right. So if you're going to be just standing there anyway, like what else would you do? Maybe watch TV or something, and that's fine. Maybe you can do it while you're watching TV, while you're cooking.
Yeah.
Listening to music, but why not move around? And it is funny because every time you come downstairs in the morning, I'm kind of groggy, like, I'm pouring coffee. And then you come down and you're like swiveling your hips and moving. And I'm like, whoa, she's always moving.
Getting moving. I got to get my body, wake it up a little bit.
I'm not sure I have much to say about getting a dog because we aren't dog people. It's not that we don't like dogs. We just have never had a dog.
But I do know a lot of people who swear about getting a dog or walking their dog because the dog will not let you get away without walking, right? They'll harass you until you take them for a walk. So that is really great. If you're finding it really hard to motivate yourself, the dog will motivate you.
It's true. When I'm running, I see people walking their dog all the time.
Yeah.
And people we know, like the dog gets them out of the house every day. And I can't help but wonder when I see people if that's a great reason to have a dog.
Yes.
It just makes sure they do some walking every day, because with everything else we talk about, I'm going to keep coming back to the fact that I think if you do nothing else, just walk a lot.
Yes.
Get lots of walking in a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then dance. So obviously, you and I are being taking dance we took a 10-week course that we recently finished. But we're finding that we often just put on our mix and try for half an hour, either learn a new move or practice the ones we know. And that's, it's not intense exercise, but it's good movement.
It is so awesome. I think it's great. I didn't actually think that we'd get this much benefit over this 10-week course. But we practice a lot. And being a dance teacher, I knew that we'd have to practice. We got to practice. And we got so much better. And we seem to really enjoy, after we're done eating, just to turn on a music and we pick what we want to do, a waltz or a foxtrot. And we do that for 5 minutes. And it just is so enjoyable and uplifting. And I feel like it gets my heart going.
Even without the heart, I do think a really important part of moving that body is also coordination. Mm-hmm. And the funny part is, I think it's helping our relationship too, because, you have these flubs and we've had a couple little blow ups, but for the most part, we've been getting more and more patient with mistakes. And you keep saying, just keep going. And, to learn to kind of work through the mistakes and not get upset. So, you see couples on the dance floor and they have this little antagonism because usually the guy doesn't want to be there and he feels embarrassed. And,
right. Or the guy's trying to lead, but the girl's telling him what to do. And it's like, it's really quite funny.
I enjoy that aspect of it too. So the coordination, the movement, but also the relationship building. Mm-hmm.
So there you go. There are the first 5 ways of moving your body while you're stuck at home. So why don't you guys give it a try?
There's a thought. Popped up while running.
I updated our website's archives page just before I went out. While I was there, I just happened to scroll down at over 100 episodes with all the content in each of them. And I just thought, wow. And it reminded me of one of the themes that we're working on when I see all the different people we're interviewing, real people sharing experiences and sharing thoughts. I realized now that one of our themes is that wellness is not an elusive concept where you need to transcend your body or attain some kind of spiritual state to be well. Sure, those are ways that are available to some, but I think few, given the realities of life. For most of us, wellness isn't mystical. It's not elusive in the sense of being a mystery. It's work. It's hard work. It's thinking broadly about the activities in our lives that affect our well-being. And it's about doing things that foster those areas. And it's so cool to scroll through the archives page on the website and look at a whole bunch of different kind of topics we talk about. So many different categories and areas, and the guests, and the possibilities of learning from each other's experience. It helps me stop worrying about mysteries that look about as unlikely to achieve as winning a lottery. I look at the archives page and I see real people talking about real things that we can do. Helpful insights. Hey, as a shameless plug, scroll through for yourself. letsbewelltogether.com, the archives page, and see if you see any episodes that look interesting. And if you haven't heard them yet, give them a listen. But even if you just scroll through the topics, you'll see that well-being doesn't have to be a mystery, and there's lots of things we can do to make ourselves feel better, and we can help each other figure out how to do that. It's me. Am I?
Yeah. Just let me say, flip side of the coin. Well, John, just because you are in a relationship doesn't mean you have to be together all the time, have the same passions, or do things together all the time. Do you agree?
Another John and Sheila relationship experience story.
Yes.
I don't know, it's strange because you're absolutely right, and we'll talk about why. But I wouldn't expect to agree with it because I don't love the idea about you. Like, you gallivant, you run off and do stuff in your own time. You're like, I'm doing this. I took a shift to work here. You make all these plans without really consulting me very much. But
yeah.
You keep me in the loop. And my first reaction is usually like, of course, like she's off doing her own thing. And so why aren't we always doing stuff together? But I recognize that it's good, like it really helps both of us because you do have different interests.
Yes, and you have different interests.
Exactly.
You don't want to acknowledge it because you do really want me here all the time and being by your side. But
well, no, that's probably, no, you're right. There are things I like to do that you don't like to do. And the fact that you leave and do other stuff gives me time to do that stuff. And I'd probably feel kind of imprisoned or something if we were always stuck together. So, so what we realized just by kind of accident is find time to give the other person space to do the things that they like to do that you don't like to do.
Yeah, because at the beginning of our relationship, when we had young kids and everything, of course, you're very busy with those kids, but we had different working schedules. You worked during the day, I worked at night. So we had to make time for each other, because if we didn't, we wouldn't see each other. But now our kids are grown. We're on the same working schedule, like almost exactly the same, because you wake up with me and go to bed with me. Like, it's really very nice that we're together so much, but we need to make time for ourselves.
When you told me about this topic, I was like, well, I'm not sure I agree with it. But as soon as I started thinking about it, I definitely agree with it. Recently, I was reading a book and I wanted to go for a walk because it was just like a weekend or something where I hadn't got any exercise in.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go for a walk, but I also wanted to listen to my book. Mm-hmm. And I said, I think I'm going to go for a walk. And you're like, yeah, I want to go with you. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, I don't want to walk with you.
But I did. I mean,
yeah.
That was just kind of an immediate reaction. And, that was another example where you realize you do need some alone time to do the things you like to do alone.
Yes. And there's things that I like to do that you don't like to do, and vice versa. Like, for example, I wanted to go out last night and you were looking up things because you have that movie thing, and you said, let's go to see.
Well, I heard Dune 2 is one of the best, if not the best, science fiction movie ever made, which to me suggests that anyone would like it, not just not Sheila.
And I was like, do you want to stay married? Like, seriously, I am not, definitely not going to see Dune 2. If you force me to watch it, I might do it with the TV, but I'm not going to a movie theater and sitting with my delicious popcorn in my wonderful seat watching.
Did you like Blade Runner?
Dune 2?
No? Okay.
Blade Runner was okay. I'm not into sci-fi. I'm really not into those ridiculous stories. I like love stories and romance. And
so if it was like dystopian things like Divergent or Hunger Games.
Okay. Like, they're okay. Like, I must admit, those are really good, but not my forte. No.
So that means, like, for Dune 2, I definitely want to watch. It's a very long movie. So sometime in the next few months when it hits the screens at home, you'll say, hey, John, I'm working on Saturday. And I'll be like, oh, of course. But in the back of my mind, I'll be like, great.
I'm watching Dune 2.
I get to watch Dune 2.
Yeah, exactly. Things like that. There's just lots of things. So I think it's really great. And I feel like when I get home, so I'm off gallivanting, when I come home, you're like, oh, I missed you. I think you need that in a relationship.
Yeah.
That I missed you. I haven't seen you in a while. Now, I am going to be going away for a few weeks, not a few weeks, but 10 days. So I'm sure you're not very happy about that.
Well, I think generally everyone would agree that that's extremely selfish and you shouldn't go to Italy by yourself without your husband for 10 days.
I'm not going by myself.
I don't think that's the example we're talking about.
I'm just so some things are I like to push the envelope a little bit, but
well, the other thing that occurs to me too is if you don't give the person space to do the things they like to do, you're going to lose that person in the sense that they'll either change because they're not doing the things they love to do and it affects their outlook, or they'll say that I don't like this. It's not acceptable.
Yeah. So it kind of can affect a lot of different facets in your in your life, which will affect your relationship. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So Sheila has no problem saying, yeah, go do your own thing. But
no,
I have more resistance to it, but I've learned that it's a good thing.
Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own, and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct, or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way.
And it's sign-off time. It's Sheila here with John and Elise.
Hello.
Hello.
And I am now home. Very happy to be home.
Right. I forgot. This is your first sign-off when you're back.
Yeah, this is my first sign-off. So it's very nice. I had a great time. It was a wonderful trip. I was a little surprised that the weather was as cold as it was. I guess that's normal, and it will get hot in the summer there. So we had some really nice days and a little cold days. But I'm really happy to be home. And lots to do here, trying to catch up with everything. The garden and the trees and everything is in full bloom. It's all coming in. It's so lovely to see. I've been busy working and it's now wedding season. So I did another wedding this weekend. So it has been all work and no play for me since I've got home. But John survived without me. And how are you doing, John?
Good. And we'll definitely need to do a couple segments about your trip.
Yes.
Where we can ask you what you did and what you liked. And because I've never been to Portugal, so I'd love to hear what that was like. Mm-hmm. A few things for me. First of all, you mentioned things coming in bloom. We have a crabapple tree. It blossoms every year. Mm-hmm. And it's really only one day where it's at the peak. And that day happened this week. Mm-hmm. So I loved waiting for it to happen. And then the day of, and just enjoyed that. My hill run and my long run went great. I started lengthening things a few weeks ago. I'm already noticing modest improvements in both. It felt fantastic. So I'm really excited about that. I'm also having fun with food prep on the weekends. I've been making beans. So black beans, I buy them dry, I soak them, and then I cook them with some nice flavors, onions and garlic and all that stuff. And then mix them with some cooked vegetables and throw that in the fridge. And then last couple of weeks, I've been working on tofu on Sunday too, flavored tofu. So I always have beans and tofu in the fridge, and it's fantastic. I can just make a really healthy little snack that's got good protein. So that's been fun too. How are you doing, Elise?
I'm doing really well. I actually have some exciting news that I'm really excited to share with our Let's Be Well Together listeners. And that's that I'm pregnant.
Woo!
Oh my gosh.
No, we kind of know that, but we haven't been saying anything for a little while.
I know, it's pretty exciting.
It's pretty exciting. I'm into my second trimester now. So we're being more open about sharing with our colleagues and other people, but we've definitely let our family know already. So just going through the motions of pregnancy has been a lot of fun. But we're getting really excited. And this week we got some of our first items. There was a coworker of Steven's who was like, oh, I would love to give you some things. And she just brought it right away to us. So it's starting to feel really real now because we're getting our first items. We're sharing with more people. So we're getting really excited.
That is very exciting, Elise.
That reminds me, I think we do have, at one point we cleared a bunch of books away, but I did keep a handful of kids' books.
Yes.
I guess
And
they have to transition.
I have some special little blankets.
Okay.
So that the kids had when they were little. Most of the other stuff isn't legal anymore. You know what I mean? Like, you know how everything has to, you know, like I did think our cribs and, you know, any of that stuff. It's like just for fires.
Well, I guess we're going to have to get used to being called grandpa and grandma or something.
Or something, yeah.
Whatever the child can say, because I think that's the way it goes. It's whatever the child decides is going to call you.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. I was thinking maybe Nana or Glamma. I like those.
Glamour. Okay.
Those are all good.
Well, we're in for a lot of interesting stuff now. Your sign-offs are going to start sounding a lot different in a while. Mm-hmm. You're going to be very busy. And it's really great that you're sharing that news. And we're looking forward to more good things to come.
That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.